I think it is just time we accept that Arsenal are going to win the league. These are not easy games. Brentford is not an easy game. They have a lot of injuries, they rotated a lot, and they still beat Brentford 2-0. We're looking at Chelsea losing to Leeds. We're looking at Man City almost bottoming a league to Fulham. The Premier League is different. The Premier League is different to how it used to be. I think the level of teams from 15th to 2nd is ridiculous. You win 2 games in a row and you can go from 12th to 3rd in this league. It is so tight. And there's only one team that seems to be able to beat all these mid-table teams, and that is Arsenal. Liverpool can't do it. Chelsea can't do it. City can't do it. Arsenal in the past, they used to beat the big teams, struggle against the smaller teams. Chelsea are beating the big teams. They're not beating the smaller teams. This is why Arsenal are going to run away with the league. Because games like Palace, Brighton, Newcastle, Brentford, Bournemouth, Fulham, they're not easy games. And Arsenal win those games. Leeds almost came back against City. City only just beat Leeds and Fulham. Arsenal battled them 5-1. Leeds are 3-1 up against Chelsea with 1 minute left. That's why I'm recording this video, because that game's basically over. Chelsea's defence, shocking. Arsenal are by far the best team in the league. And I think it's time we just admit and accept that Arsenal are going to win the league. They are just far greater than everyone else. Because they've had injuries to Odegaard, Saka, Saliba, and Gabriel this season, and they're still winning those games because their squad depth's insane. Arsenal have an elite defence. You look at Liverpool's defence, shaky. You look at Chelsea's defence, Tosin's good on the ball, poor off the ball. You look at City, defence is shaky. City got a great attack but shaky defence. Arsenal got a great defence. As Sir Alex Ferguson said, attack can win you games, defence can win you titles. Arsenal got a great defence. But Arsenal have an attack now that can win games. Last season, and I think with Saka out and Havertz out, and Odegaard's injury and Odegaard out of form, and Ben White brings so much to the attack that I'm going to talk about, and Calafiori's injuries, it obviously impacted Arsenal in attack, But Arsenal sorted out their attack this season. Even with injuries, Merino's balling out, probably man of the match today. But, even with injuries, Arsenal have that quality in attack. They've got Eze that could score a hat-trick against Tottenham. They've got Max Darwin and Yeri to bring off the bench if they want something different. But, they don't have to play Saka every single minute of every single game. Madueke can come in with quality. Martinelli can make runs behind. Trossard in those big games, he's clutch. He has that quality. Arsenal have such a good team. Because right now, the Chelsea game is almost over. It's 3-1 to Leeds. Fulham almost came back. And arguably, you can say Fulham were robbed of a penalty. We're now 14 games into the season. I feel like we're now long enough into the season to know. And I just know Arsenal are going to win the league. Do you know what I mean? I've just seen enough of City. I've seen enough of Chelsea. I've seen enough of Liverpool to be like, if Arsenal can get wins over the line without Saliba and Gabriel, if Arsenal can get wins over the line without Odegaard, without Saka, without 2 of their strikers, Arsenal are going to win the league. Because this league is physical. It's about battles. It's almost a bit more like the OG Premier League than it has been before. And Arsenal have the physicality. They have the squad depth. They play at this ridiculous intensity, and it's about that intensity and winning second balls. And Arsenal have the squad depth to play at this ridiculous intensity. And what they can do is Mosquera could continue playing with a bit of a knock and make it worse. No, it's fine. Bring Timber on at centre-back. When they want to rest Timber, they've got Ben White. How good was Ben White today? We're going to talk about Ben White, man of the match. We're going to talk about Calafiori, mint. But you've got all these players. You've got 2 strikers injured, and Merino arguably is best at striker than in midfield. Madueke can play for Saka, and Saka can be rested. Hincapie can come in. If Konate and Van Dijk got injured, Liverpool have Leone that's injured, so he's already injured. Joe Gomez, and they'd be throwing Endo at centre-back. You look at other teams, who would they be throwing in at centre-back if they got injuries? I mean, you look at Chelsea, they've got Fofana, Tosin, Chalobah, but Chelsea fans aren't even convinced about those players. And then you've got Acheampong that's great but young. You look at the quality that Arsenal have, not just in their team, but in their rotated team, and it's just given them another level. It's just literally given them another level. It's insane. Unless we've got to talk about Ben White, because this guy has barely played football. He's had a horrid almost year and a half, 2 years we're looking at. And he won more duels 10 and more tackles 6 than any other player against Brentford. Because, don't get me wrong, Arsenal were good and won 2-0, but it wasn't like Arsenal battled Brentford or it was an easy game for Arsenal. And I see some Arsenal fans say, crap game, we won 2-0, we move on. I think Arsenal fans who are saying, crap game, we won 2-0, we move on, are underestimating the quality of the Premier League. I just spoke about how these other teams are all dropping points. I think the Arsenal fans that are saying that aren't realising that Brentford's not going to be easy. I said I think I could see Arsenal dropping points in this game. I did in my predictions video. I don't think Arsenal fans realise that beating Brentford 2-0, even if it's not the prettiest football in the world, I don't think you realise how good that is, because Chelsea drew to Brentford, Man United lost to Brentford, Liverpool lost to Brentford. You know, they're a tough game. You beat them 2-0. It wasn't easy. They challenged you because they're going to give you a game. The level in the Premier League now is they're going to give you a game. Calafiori and Ben White had a lot to do defensively, and both of them were two of the best players on the pitch. You're going to get a game in the Premier League. So you might not be happy with your win over this team and your win over that team. You know, you might be saying this, you might be saying that. But even when you drew to Sunderland away, I saw Arsenal fans complaining. Sunderland like 5th in the league and you drew to them away. They've been unreal this season. They just drew to Liverpool. And Arsenal fans are complaining. I think Arsenal fans need to take for granted what they're doing. I think you seriously need to take for granted what you're doing, because not every team can just beat Brentford and get a result versus these mid-table teams. You're the only team that's consistently getting results against the mid-table. City are just about sneaking results here and there. And that is why you're top of the league. And you've had maybe the most injuries and you're still doing it. You know, you look at games like Brighton 2-0. That's not an easy game to win. That's the EFL Cup. But sorry, Crystal Palace 1-0. That's not an easy game to win. Fulham 1-0. It's not an easy game to win. 1-0 down to Newcastle, you win 2-1. Not easy games to win. West Ham 2-0. Just because you're not battering them and winning 5-0 and playing free-flowing football doesn't make it bad. Man United, you won ugly. Last season, I used to say that Liverpool and City win ugly. Well, 2 seasons ago, City, but Arsenal can't. And that's where Arsenal beat Liverpool to the league, because Liverpool could not show up but win ugly. Arsenal couldn't win ugly. You won ugly versus Manchester United. You know, I think Arsenal have gone up levels. And I have to say, we've got to talk about Ben White, because we all know what Ben White can do when he's fit. We all know he's an incredible player, and he looked athletically fit. He was able to play 90 minutes. He offers something so unique to Timber. I think Timber's probably been the best right back in the league this season. But when you look at Ben White, you know, he offers such a unique skill set, and maybe I think Timber's forward game has improved, but I think Ben White offers so much going forward that, you know, Timber doesn't quite offer. Ben White looked back to his physical best. He looked back to his physical best. He was able to play 90 minutes today. Only Declan Rice made more progressive carries than Ben White. Declan Rice made 11 progressive carries. Ben White made 8. Only Rice and Odegaard made more progressive passes than Ben White, who made 8 passes. No one made more tackles, clearances, or completed as many duels as Ben White, 10 out of 16 today. Like, that is nuts. 1 assist, 4 tackles, 6 clearances, more assists than Verts now. 1 block, 3 recoveries, 7 out of 9 ground duels won, 3 out of 7 aerial duels won, 1 time dribble pass, 1 time chance created. He was phenomenal. He was absolutely phenomenal. But you know what? Who I thought was everywhere, and I thought had a monstrous game, was Ricardo Calafiori, who has been insane lately. He made great runs. He's really good at finding space, getting shots off. We know what Calafiori can do going forward. I remember he scored a fantastic goal in one of his earliest games versus Man City last season. We know what he's like. Calafiori and Merino actually were 2 signings that a lot of people had question marks around in April, May last year. A lot of people had question marks over the signings of Merino and Calafiori. There'd be injuries, there'd been inconsistencies. And I get that. But I always backed Calafiori in particular. I said Merino's done well because he ended the season well as a striker, but I always backed Calafiori in particular. And a lot of people questioned the signing, and I could just see his quality. I said sometimes there's a bit of defensive liability there. But I was like, going forward, this guy, the way he just runs with the ball, the way his ball striking is, he's got so much attacking quality. But I've noticed a big change in Calafiori this season defensively. I think he's got so much better defensively. I thought the shift he put in today defensively was insane. I don't think people realise how good Calafiori has been this season, how consistent Calafiori has been this season, how much he's improved defensively. I don't think Calafiori is getting anywhere near enough credit for how much he's improved defensively. You know, he can obviously score goals. He can obviously have lethal shots. He can obviously run up the pitch, find space. But he's having an unreal season defensively and offensively this year. He's everywhere. He's winning back the ball. He's a physical beast. And I think Calafiori and Merino and Havertz, for example, are seen as confusing footballers. But they have these elite physical qualities. and these special traits that make Arsenal a unique side. Calafiori and Lewis Skelly offer something very different. Timber and Ben White offer something very different. And Capia brings a different kind of aggression. Subamendi is more of a metronome. Declan Rice is more of a physical monster that can contribute in the final third. Arsenal have so many different profiles of players that offer so many different things that, Martinelli and Trossard are going to offer very different things on the left. Saka and Madueke are going to offer very different things on the right. You don't know what to predict when you play Arsenal because you don't know who Arsenal are going to line up with, and you don't know what to predict. Havertz and Gyökeres bring different things. So you can't prepare to play Arsenal because if you're preparing to play Gyökeres and they play Havertz, there's something very different there. If you're preparing to play Martinelli and Madueke and they start Trossard and Saka, there's something very different there. If you're expecting Timber to play and Ben White plays and overlaps, something different there. Arsenal are the best team in the world because they're so unpredictable as well. You can't prepare to play Arsenal because they've got a level of squad depth where they could rotate and bring something that we're just not expecting. Anyway, thank you for watching today's video. See you next time. Bye.